o'clock with episode number 11 of Buckeye by Patrick Ryan. Stay with us for these readings and more.
The Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from USA Today for Friday, April 3rd, 2026. Your reader for this hour is me, Chet Walzik. Happy you are able to join me. And we'll kick it off with the weekend edition, the cover section, and one of their feature stories from USA Today. Vast migrant centers planned across the United States, but amid backlash, future of ICE initiative is in question. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement officials have spent months advancing a controversial effort to drastically expand its detention space by buying up warehouses nationwide and converting them into holding centers. Internal documents show the agency had plans to buy and retrofit 24 commercial warehouses, boosting its detention capacity to more than 92,000 beds in a matter of months. The largest of the proposed facilities, which ICE has described as mega centers, was intended to hold 7,000 to 10,000 people at a time and would serve as the primary location for deportations. ICE also planned to buy 16 warehouses to convert into processing centers, which would hold 1,500 detainees for an average of 5 to 7 days. But the project's future has become increasingly unclear 2 weeks into recently confirmed DHS Secretary Mark Wayne Mullen's tenure. In an emailed statement to USA Today, the Department of Homeland Security, which oversees ICE, said that as with any transition, we are reviewing agency policies and proposals. The former Oklahoma senator has expressed some hesitancy with the expansion, noting at his confirmation hearing in March that it's important that we are talking to the communities where such centers would be constructed and maintained. It's not clear whether Mullen intends on moving forward with the agency's plan to convert already acquired warehouses into detention centers. Pushback from communities contributed to the collapse of at least 11 deals, but the federal government has already purchased at least 11 warehouses. Officials and residents alike have raised concerns about whether warehouses meant to hold commercial cargo can safely and humanely house people. Local officials, including Republicans, have said the facilities could overwhelm public sewage and water systems, especially in rural areas, and said they were not consulted about the projects before sales were completed. ICE said it is complying with all federal regulations and has taken public infrastructure into account when surveying potential sites. Internal documents show the agency plans to spend tens of millions of dollars building out the sites, adding recreational areas, dormitories, courtrooms, and cafeterias, as well as religious spaces and medical facilities. The estimated cost of the initiative is $38 billion. According to ICE documents, money allocated last year through President Trump's Big Beautiful Bill Act. ICE has already spent more than $1 billion buying warehouses, public records show. The government has shelled out more than $100 million for 5 individual properties. The commercial real estate firm CoStar found that the agency paid 11 to 13% above market rate for 10 warehouses, with some purchases as high as 30% above recent comparable deals. ICE has defended its purchases, saying the department is buying commercial space for fair market value. Internal documents say the agency seeks to bring each of the planned facilities online by the end of November, and the first could start holding detainees as early as next spring. But mounting challenges could set back the plans. Officials in Maryland, New Jersey, and Michigan have filed lawsuits to stop the DHS from using warehouses in their states as detention centers. In Maryland, A federal judge ordered a temporary halt of construction at a warehouse in Williamsport, saying it appears the government likely failed to comply with obligations under the Environmental Protection Policy Act. Authorities also are using public infrastructure to block the projects from moving forward. In Social Circle, Georgia, local officials cut water and sewage services at a planned detention center and said they won't unlock the systems until the government responds to their questions. In Utah, the Salt Lake City Council passed a resolution capping water consumption at non-residential properties, which could complement plans for a proposed detention center. And looking at a map of these proposed centers, they are scattered pretty much throughout the United States, with the exception of the far west and the upper Midwest. There is a facility that has been rejected in New York State, and that was located in Chester, New York, which is in the upper Hudson Valley and about on the eastern edge of the Adirondack Park. So looks like New York State is not in line for any of these things. And moving along, FDA approves new pill for weight loss. Lilly's Foundayo adds to consumer options. The Food and Drug Administration on April 1st approved Eli Lilly's new weight loss pill, giving consumers a second option in the growing non-injectable GLP-1 weight loss drug market. Lilly said it will sell its weight loss pill under the brand name Foundayo. The FDA approved the once-daily prescription pill for adults who have obesity or are overweight with weight-related medical problems. The emergence of Foundayo gives consumers another GLP-1 weight loss pill option. Novo Nordisk Wegovy pill had been the only FDA-approved GLP-1 pill available since December of 2025. Both Lilly and Novo are betting daily weight loss pills will be popular for consumers who want to avoid a shot or have been reluctant to take weight loss medication. Consumers whose insurance does not cover weight loss medications can buy Foundayo at $149 for a 1-month supply of the lowest dose and up to $349 for additional monthly doses. Higher doses begin at $299 for a 1-month prescription under Foundayo's self-pay program. People with insurance that covers weight loss drugs might pay as little as $25 per month with a Foundayo savings card, Lilly said. In a clinical trial, people on the highest dose of Foundayo lost an average of about 27 pounds, compared with about 2 pounds on a placebo. The medication can cause side effects such as nausea, constipation, diarrhea, vomiting, indigestion, stomach pain, headache, fatigue, burping, reflux disease, gas, and hair loss, the FDA said. David Ricks, CEO of Eli Lilly, said fewer than 1 in 10 people who could benefit from a GLP-1 are taking one. We believe Foundayo can help level the playing field for those living with obesity or who are overweight and living with weight-related complications, Ricks said in a statement. Dan Skowronski, Lilly's chief scientific and product officer, said that a weight loss pill should help people overcome barriers such as a stigma about obesity or an unwillingness to get a shot. People might be more willing to take a pill to treat obesity because so many adults already take oral medicines for high blood pressure and cholesterol. With the option of taking a pill, we are going to change weight maintenance to be something very much like managing cholesterol and blood pressure, Skowronski said. With the launch of Foundayo, Lilly will take aim at rival Novo Nordisk's popular weight loss pill Wegovy. Since Novo launched its Wegovy pill following its December approval, demand for the oral medication has soared with more than 600,000 prescriptions. It's similar to how the rivals sparred over anti-obesity shots. Lilly's Zepbound and Novo's Wegovy are injectable weight loss drugs that have accelerated global demand for weight loss medications. Goldman Sachs projects global anti-obesity drug sales will reach $105 billion by 2030. But health insurance companies have been slow to cover these popular weight loss medications. A survey by benefits consultant Mercer found 49% of large employers covered GLP-1 medications for obesity in 2025. Another survey by health policy nonprofit KFF found 43% of larger employers in 2025 paid for anti-obesity drugs. Both Lilly and Novo have discounted medications for those whose insurance does not cover anti-obesity drugs. You are listening to reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time comes in at 11 minutes after the hour. Continuing with the cover section, here's a short story that takes some of us older folks back in time. Payphones used to connect Gen Zers with older adults. Free social experiment aims to fight loneliness. Gen Z is notoriously bad at picking up the phone. Boomers grew up on it. A new social experiment wants to get them talking to each other. Outside of a busy coffee shop on Boston University's campus, a sign on a bright yellow payphone invites passerbys to call a boomer. In a lobby across the country at Sierra Manor, a subsidized senior housing facility in Reno, Nevada, a similar payphone reads, "Call a Zoomer." When a user on either end of the line picks up the phone, it automatically dials the companion phone. The calls are free for both users. The biotech startup Matter Neuroscience installed the phones as a social experiment to connect Gen Z with older adults, two age demographics experiencing high levels of loneliness. The phones, installed the first week of March, will stay up at least until April 9th. They're two demographics that often are at odds as far as perspectives and just outlooks on the world. And you might not think that they have a lot in common, says Kala Kessler, a social strategist for Matter who helped come up with the project. Being able to connect with them and encourage conversation might introduce some positivity in both of their lives, some friendship that's much needed, and a wisdom exchange. Kessler says for young people living their lives increasingly online, the hardest part of making the project is the buildup that comes with picking up the phone and giving it a shot. It was a little nerve-wracking, says Boston University sophomore Sadie Cohen of trying out the phone. You don't know if someone's going to be online immediately, so that impromptu conversation is kind of scary. But it was a good scary. In conversations recorded by Matter Neuroscience, students and seniors have discussed the weather in their respective states, compared their college experiences, and discussed where one another are from. There's definitely an exchange of advice being sought out, Kessler says. The younger people want to know what the older people think about life, if they have any words of wisdom. For some members of Gen Z, the idea of picking up a phone and calling someone, especially without sending a heads-up text first, is intimidating. Studies find that Gen Z prefers texting over calling, citing factors like convenience and reduced social anxiety. Cohen pointed out that for her and many peers, it might be the first time they have used a payphone in public. She appreciated the analog aspect of the project. I don't even know if I've ever seen an actual payphone around ever, she says. This isn't the first of Matter Neuroscience's projects to go viral. Earlier this year, They used a cross-country payphone exchange for their Party Line project, connecting people in San Francisco with those in Abilene, Texas, to bring together Democrats and Republicans with differing viewpoints. That project generated more than 350 conversations and 400 voicemails. With this project, the focus is on loneliness and generational divides, not political ones. We live in isolated times, and we need each other. Humans need one another on a molecular level. We are very social beings at heart, Kessler says. Even before the COVID pandemic, roughly half of adults reported experiencing loneliness, but former U.S. Surgeon General Vivek Murthy in the spring of 2023 declared America's loneliness epidemic as a public health crisis. Loneliness and social isolation can increase risk for premature death as much as smoking 15 cigarettes a day, according to the report. Loneliness, I definitely see that around, Cohen says. Our society has moved a lot away from in-person social interaction between the same generation and then especially across generations. When Matter Neuroscience approached Pavement Coffee in Boston about setting up the phone by its storefront, marketing coordinator Thomas Tague Blow said he thought back to the hardships of navigating social dynamics during college. There is a lot of relatability there, and this project sort of taps into that and helps people think about other people, as simple as that sounds, Tague Blow says. After April 9th, Kessler says the company will evaluate the success of the phones and consider extending the project's duration. You see people online commenting. People yearn for community, Kessler said. It's true. We need each other. Easter spending may top $25 billion this year. Food, gifts, and clothing top the list of holiday purchases. Americans will spend a projected record-breaking $24.9 billion on Easter this year, most of it on food and gifts, a 5.5% increase over the $23.6 billion spent in 2025. On a per-person basis, that's another record of $195.60, or 2% more than spent in 2023. So, you might ask, why do people buy Easter items? 58% buy it for tradition. 36% are prompted by sales and promotions. 30% find shopping as a social activity. 27% are motivated by store displays and decorations. And also 27% think of it as exclusive or seasonal products. And what are people buying? Well, from a dollar perspective, $7.5 billion is spent on food, $3.9 billion on gifts, $3.7 billion on clothing, $3.5 billion on candy, and $2.2 billion on flowers. And according to this survey, what are the favorite Easter activities? Coming at the top, 56% responded it's the holiday meal. 52% said visiting relatives and friends. 43% listed church. And 35% said planning an egg hunt. How about that? You're listening to reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 19 minutes after the hour. And today's edition of USA Today, at least for the cover section, is a little bit light on news, so we'll turn to some opinion pieces. The first is written by Susan Page, who's the Washington bureau chief for USA Today. Her piece comes under the title, Iran War, Fast Start or Murky Ending? On day 33 of the war with Iran, President Trump declared victory was at hand. Almost. In a primetime address from the White House, Trump extolled what he called swift, decisive, overwhelming victories on the battlefield. Victory so decisive, he suggested the war would wind down after another 2 or 3 weeks of military strikes that could, quote, bring them back to the Stone Ages where they belong. We are on track to complete all of America's military objectives shortly, very shortly, he said. But he made it clear he was prepared to leave a messy and problematic situation behind. The 19-minute speech included no new details about the war's course and no more than a brief reference to the possibility of negotiated settlement. But he also did not mention the possibility of expanding the war by deploying the thousands of U.S. ground forces now being massed in the region. And he recast what he had been described as a fundamental goal, to gain control of the highly enriched uranium now buried in Iranian territory, as a step he no longer sees as necessary. The sites were under intensive satellite surveillance and control. American forces could return to the region if Iran tried to retrieve it, he said. That surveillance has been going on for years, of course, well before the war began. He even indicated an inclination to leave it to other nations to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, now in an Iranian chokehold that is driving up energy prices. Countries more dependent than the United States on the oil shipped through the passageway should, quote, build up some delayed courage and just take it, protect it, use it for yourself, he urged. Besides, he predicted, the strait will open up naturally when the war ends. And that all points to a president anxious to end this war, and soon. Before the speech, there had been speculation both that Trump might announce the war's end and that he might announce the war's escalation. Both theories were based on contradictory comments he has made about just what the essential goals were. In a social media post on April 1st, the president said the United States would not consider a ceasefire until the Strait of Hormuz was open and free, vowing to blast Iran into oblivion until it was. But in an interview with Reuters, also on April 1st, he said the United States would consider the war over pretty quickly and could return for spot hits if necessary. As it turned out, the speech aligned more closely with the Reuters interview than the post on X. Trump was addressing a skeptical American public. In a CNN poll taken March 26th to the 30th, just a third of those surveyed approved of the decision to attack Iran, support that has eroded since the war began. In a Reuters Ipsos survey, 2/3 said the United States should end the conflict soon, even if all its goals had not been achieved. That included 4 in 10 Republicans. Trump's overall job approval rating has sagged to 36% in the Ipsos poll and 35% in the CNN poll, amid Republicans' alarm that the Iran war was shaking an already difficult political landscape for the midterm congressional elections in November. Meanwhile, the war continues. Bombs struck Tehran on April 1st, setting plumes of smoke above the capital. Iranian missiles hit sites in Israel where Jews were celebrating the first night of Passover. Israel launched strikes on Lebanon, and Iran sent missiles to the United Arab Emirates. The U.S. Central Command updated the number of targets that U.S. forces have hit in Iran during the war to 12,300 so far. And continuing with the opinion pieces, we have an item written by Stuart McLaurin. Mr. McLaurin is president of the White House Historical Association, a private, nonprofit, nonpartisan organization founded by First Lady Jacqueline Kennedy in 1961. And he is the director of the People's House, a White House Experience multimedia educational center and museum. And Mr. McLaurin's column is entitled Cherry Blossoms Diplomacy is a History That Blooms Each Spring. Each spring, the Japanese cherry blossoms around Washington, D.C. remind Americans that some of the most enduring connections between nations often begin with simple gestures that carry lasting meaning, like the gifting of trees. On March 19th, Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takahashi presented a cherry blossom sapling to President Trump at the White House, marking the first of 250 new trees Japan is donating to celebrate America's 250th anniversary and extending her country's long-standing tradition. Such moments of ceremony and hospitality have marked U.S.-Japan diplomacy for more than a century and a half, including the spring blossom celebrations that now color our nation's capital each year. The two countries' history at the White House dates back to one of the most remarkable diplomatic visits early Washington had ever seen. In 1860, a delegation of 77 Japanese envoys, including 3 samurai, traveled to the United States to meet President James Buchanan. Some 5,000 people stood along Pennsylvania Avenue, and 20,000 more climbed trees and looked out windows along the way, all hoping to catch a glimpse of visitors from a country most Americans had never seen represented in person. During the 3-week visit, the two sides exchanged gifts as a sign of goodwill. The United States presented commemorative medals bearing Buchanan's likeness. The Japanese delegation offered silkscreens, swords, and porcelain, along with a ratified trade agreement that opened Japan's ports to American ships. More recent White House dinners between the two nations' leaders are also often remembered for unique details and special touches. When Crown Prince Akihito, the future Emperor of Japan, and Princess Michiko visited President Dwight Eisenhower in 1960 to celebrate 100 years of diplomatic relations, crowds again cheered the way. Bridging an evening of high honors and small children, the Crown Prince presented Eisenhower with Japan's highest honor, the Order of the Chrysanthemum, while in one of the White House's more charming footnotes, the president's 4-year-old granddaughter, Mary Jean, was told she would have to detour her usual ride through the Executive Mansion's hallways in her battery-powered toy model Thunderbird. When Japanese Prime Minister Isako Sato was about to visit Washington in 1967, White House aides learned he was fascinated with baseball. President Lyndon Johnson invited Major League Baseball Commissioner William Eckert and St. Louis Cardinals star pitcher Bob Gibson to meet him. During the Carter presidency, the White House discovered that visiting Prime Minister Masayoshi Ohira had always wanted to attend an American barbecue. The 1979 state dinner was moved outdoors to the West Terrace, where chefs prepared a feast for 180 guests that included buffalo meat and suckling pig roasted on halved 50-gallon oil drums. When President Barack Obama hosted Prime Minister Shinzo Abe in 2015, White House executive chef Christina Comerford invited another special guest, world-renowned Japanese Iron Chef Masaharu Morimoto, to the event. The two prepared the state dinner with a menu that reflected the blend of cultures. American beef descended from Japanese Wagyu cattle and wine produced by a Japanese American. The cherry blossom tradition started in 1912 when First Lady Helen Taft and the wife of the Japanese ambassador planted the first of the 3,000 trees that Tokyo's mayor sent to Washington as a gift of friendship. Over time, the delicate pink and white blossoms grew into one of the capital's most recognizable signs of spring. First ladies and presidents since have also embraced the cultural touchstones and symbols of friendship. Florence Harding, in 1921, directed White House gardeners to plant cherry trees on the grounds and later personally hand-clipped blossoms for the Executive Mansion. In 1934, First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt and a delegation from the Japanese embassy launched the capital's first official cherry blossom festival with a sunrise ceremony and help through the day from the Marine Band, a parade, and a performance of Gilbert and Sullivan's operetta, The Mikado. Decades later, First Lady Claudia Lady Bird Johnson reenacted the original tree planting and praised the gift of trees as a reminder of the generosity of Japan. The exchange of trees even flowed the other direction. First Lady Nancy Reagan once presented the Japanese ambassador with a 3-foot sapling descended from the tidal basin's original cherry trees. It later became known in Japan as the President Reagan tree. Joshua Walker, President and CEO of the Japan Society, has said, "The cherry blossoms remind us every spring that the U.S.-Japan alliance is built not just on treaties, but on trust, shared values, and people-to-people ties." And as President Trump observed March 19th at a White House dinner honoring Japan and Prime Minister Takachi, for more than a century, this magnificent explosion of pink and white has graced America's capital as something that really represents the cherished friendships between two of our world's most extraordinary nations. Well, there you have it. Educational, touching, and proving that we can get along. You are listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, where the time is 31 minutes after the hour. And we move to the money section for Friday, April 3rd. And as I say, every time I look at the money section on Fridays, it is the travel and tourism section. So, this is what they offer us today for your upcoming or recently completed trips. We have a piece as a feature story written by Christopher Elliott. He is the on-travel columnist for USA Today. And Mr. Elliott tells us, car rental rage. Drivers are mad, getting even with firms. Marcy Shackney is mad. She recently waited 2.5 hours at Los Angeles International Airport just to talk to a car rental agent. After completing her paperwork, she inspected 3 vehicles that were, quote, beyond dirty before finding one suitable to drive. A one-off? Nope. A few weeks later, when she tried to rent a sedan at Washington Dulles, she waited 45 minutes for a car in her reserved category. The agent's attitude was, take it or leave it. Both experiences made me feel undervalued as a customer, she said. Shackney, a marketing executive from Hollywood, Florida, was understandably upset. And she's got company. There's a new kind of travel fury that's erupting at counters everywhere. Car rental rage. It's the result of several unfortunate car rental problems, including hidden fees, cleaning charges that would make a hotel manager blush, and service that feels more adversarial than accommodating. And drivers aren't just getting mad, they're getting evening. They're getting even. Why are travelers angry about car rentals? 3 words: frustration, disemption, and powerlessness. Thomas Plant, a psychology professor at Santa Clara University, points to the frustration-aggression hypothesis to explain what's happening. Anger typically unfolds as a response to frustration and stress, he said. Travel has become more and more stressful in many ways. We seem to be getting less and less service for more and more cost and hassles. It's a perfect recipe for frustration and stress that leads to aggression. And he said, the triggers are everywhere, starting with aggressive upselling. Daniel Opliger, a travel agency owner, encountered an agent at Phoenix who launched into a 10-minute spiel about insurance, despite his repeated refusals to purchase. I said I would go elsewhere if she mentioned insurance again, he said. She did, and he left. And then we have bait and switch pricing. Nothing is more irritating than the advertising done by car rental companies where they show the total price only to find out it's the total price before they add all the junk fees and taxes, said Mark Beals, a retired mortgage banker from Mill Creek, Washington. And then let's take a look at unfair damage charges. Some car rental companies are using artificial intelligence to scan every inch of your rental and bill you for even the smallest damage. There is no set process to mutually determine what might be pre-rental damages, said Sam Tolles, a media consultant from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So, I spend 20 minutes filming the car and photographing each portion of it in the event I return the vehicle and get dinged for a pre-existing ding. You don't have to suffer all three to be furious at your car rental company. How to know if you have car rental rage? Well, one sign that you're mad is you're making car rental reservations you don't intend to keep out of spite. Car rental companies typically allow you to cancel reservations without a penalty. If you are angry, that's how you inflict damage on them. You make several reservations, which tie up their inventory and cost them money. Ouch. In fact, if you find yourself arguing with a car rental employee after you return your car, it might be a sign of car rental rage. Sociologist Deborah Cohen, who has researched rage, notes that rental counter staff report a noticeable increase in hostile exchanges with customers arguing aggressively over fuel policies, cleaning fees, and mystery charges. There is a lot of anger, said Alan Bebekoff, CEO of the car rental booking platform Economy Bookings. The anger goes both ways. Rental companies are fighting back with their own arsenal, starting with stricter cleaning standards. Bebekoff explains that cleaning standards were raised so sand, pet hair, glitter, or vaping smells can trigger deep clean fees. Then we have massive security deposits. Deposits are tiered by vehicle class at some locations, ranging from $300 to $1,000. And there's more surveillance technology. Tyla Lee, a design consultant from Calgary, found a tracking device in her rental recently. When she asked a representative, he was baffled. Not that I was being tracked, she said, but that I have found out. If the car rental rage starts to cost companies money, experts predict they will invent new fees to make up for the lost revenue. It's a pattern that repeats itself in the travel industry all the time. But you can stop it. So how do you break car rental rage? First of all, don't get mad. It won't help. Start by reading the contract. That's the agreement between you and the car rental company. Your arrangement with the car rental company is a contractual one, explained attorney Danny Karen, who represents victims in consumer fraud cases. If the company did not keep its end up, you could have a breach of contract claim, whether individually or as a class action, if your rental agreement does not contain a forced arbitration clause. Knowing your rights in advance can help too. For example, you're not obligated to buy the car rental company's expensive insurance regardless of what a car rental salesperson claims. There's a common misconception that travelers have to purchase auto insurance offered by rental car providers or even use their personal auto insurance for rental cars, said Daniel Durazo, Director of External Communications for Allianz Partners USA. In fact, travel insurance companies like Allianz sell standalone policies that cover rental cars and are significantly cheaper than insurance sold by car rental companies. You can also rent from a company known for treating its customers well. Several of the drivers I interviewed for this story said they preferred renting through blue-chip rental companies like Avis or Enterprise. It's a little bit more expensive, but they don't play games, and they won't tick you off. And finally, take a deep breath. Plant, the psychologist, said if you schedule a little extra time, you can get a little breathing room, and that might reduce the stress that leads to anger. Car rental rage isn't going anywhere until the industry addresses its biggest problem, treating customers like suckers instead of human beings. Louis Ducret, founder of the digital insurance platform Iprezzo, said the best way forward is full transparency. Show the customer upfront exactly what they'll pay, what they'll get, he said. Remove the guesswork. Until that happens, we may be stuck in this cycle of mutual antagonism. Customers will keep fighting back with dirty returns, unused reservations, and hostile reviews. Companies will respond with stricter policies and higher fees. And the rest of us will keep taking photos of rental cars like crime scene investigators. Man, what used to be an easy process now is also getting aggravating. You are listening to reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 41 minutes after the hour. And we continue with the travel and tourism section. Cruising altitude. Written by columnist Zach Winter. Airlines are coming clean on delays. Enhanced notifications now offer fuller pictures. American Airlines is telling you why your flight is delayed. The company started rolling out enhanced delay and cancellation notifications last month, and as I said to Heather Garbodin, the carrier's chief customer officer, it's a smart move. Few things are more frustrating for travelers than knowing your flight is delayed but not why, or how long it could last. With its latest app update, American is now giving customers a fuller explanation behind every delay and cancellation. It's not solving the root problem, but Garbodin said she hopes it gives passengers more peace of mind when things aren't quite on track. All of us can relate. When you have a delayed flight or your flight gets canceled, that is peak stress when traveling. So understanding what's going on can help relieve that, she told me. United Airlines started offering similar explanations for delays and cancellations to customers in 2018, and I've been surprised that other airlines were not quicker to follow. Here's what to know about the latest update from American and how you can find this kind of info if you're flying another airline that doesn't easily provide it. American Airlines app update. The update started rolling out on American's app, website, and email notifications on March 16th. The enhanced cancellation and delay explanations became available for all flights across the airline on March 30th. It sounds very simple, but there's over 1,800 various explanations as to what could delay a flight, Garbodin said. We want to make sure we are communicating it in a way that makes customers understand. Some of the common explanations for delays or cancellations include weather, maintenance issues, or air traffic control flow programs. When flying, I don't think anyone's ever upset about having too much information, especially when things don't go as planned, Garbodin said. Ultimately, we just want customers to know that we are working to be as transparent as we possibly can for them and to create as calm an environment as we can. Knowing the causes of your delay can help you understand what you're entitled to. When an airline is responsible for the schedule change, as in the case of a maintenance or staffing issue, passengers generally are eligible for hotel and meal vouchers, depending on the length of the delay. That is not the case when an airline is not responsible for the disruption, as in the case of weather. William J. McGee, Senior Fellow for Aviation and Travel at the American Economic Liberties Project, told me airlines sometimes try to fudge these explanations, especially if their own internal communications about the issues are unclear. And he said he's optimistic that technology can help with that too. One of the greatest sources of passenger frustration, two greatest sources are A, not being told anything, and B, feeling that you are being lied to, McGee said. If these apps can help with that, that's a good thing. Lack of communication from airlines during disruptions is a major complaint from customers across carriers, and anything companies can do to alleviate that will help with those frustrations. The thing that really angers passengers is not being told anything, and that's the worst thing you can do, McGee said. You really do need somebody to tell you why this is happening. He added that he's seen firsthand how poor communication from airlines can escalate into air rage incidents. When passengers are stuck at the gate for hours on end with no information about what's going on, it can lead to stress for everyone and can cause frustrated passengers to lash out. Anything that can bring the thermostat down is a good thing, McGee said. And you might ask, where else is this kind of information available? Well, I have an answer. If you're not flying an airline such as United or American, which make this information available in their apps, there are other places you can check to get a fuller picture of the cause behind your flight disruptions. One of the first places I usually check is the Federal Aviation Administration website that lists the status of the National Airspace System. There, you will see information about conditions at any airport that's experiencing delays. Other good places to check are FlightAware or Flight Radar 24, where you can track the incoming plane that will serve your flight. You can also check out your airport's website directly for more information about conditions affecting the area. Such apps as Flighty also are great tools for frequent travelers, but most of their tracking features are behind a paywall, so it may not be worth it for those who only fly a few times a year. In general, though, I think it's best when companies are transparent and proactive. I hope to see more airlines following the lead of United and American when it comes to delay explanations. You are listening to reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 48 minutes after the hour, and we continue. Norwegian Luna dazzles for passengers. The line's newest ship takes inspiration from space. During Elton, a celebration of Elton John on Norwegian Cruise Line's newest ship, an astronaut appears to defy gravity on stage. The figure, clad in a helmet and spacesuit, a member of the cast, spins horizontally and upside down around a pole in the center of the stage while the cast sings a rousing rendition of the British pop icon's hit Rocket Man. The moment is a highlight of a new show aboard Norwegian Luna, packed full of dazzling costumes, from the rooster suit to his baseball uniform, powerful vocals, and a complex stage setup incorporating a slew of pianos. It was also fitting for a ship designed around the moon. Luna, the latest in Norwegian's Prima Plus class, takes inspiration from space, a theme that informs the design, amenities, and programming. While it closely resembles sister ship Norwegian Aqua, which launched in 2025, Elton is just one of its new attractions. USA Today was among the first to explore the ship in late March, and here's what to know. What's new on Norwegian Luna? First of all, we have a tribute to the Eagles. Elton John isn't the only artist Norwegian pays homage to on Luna. In the new show at the Luna Theater, the cast performs selections from the Eagles catalog, such as Desperado and Already Gone, sharing stories about the group between songs. The set list culminates in a thrilling take on the guitar solo from Hotel California. Then we have Lunatique, Pop Circus. The ship is built for multi-generational families, including some parts just for grown-ups. The 21 Plus show inside the Improv at Sea Club incorporates circus characters, pop hits, and a special cocktail menu. Racy jokes and renditions of songs like Kylie Minogue's Can't Get You Out of My Head and Don't Ya, made famous by the Pussycat Dolls, are delivered with a wink. Shy passengers should note that the cast selects a few patrons to join them on stage, and unlike Luna's other new shows, there's a $45 per person cover charge. The fee includes drinks and a souvenir glass, which are delivered to guest tables. And then we have upper deck activities. Some of Luna's new activities are concentrated on its highest decks, including the Moon Climber, an obstacle course that towers over Deck 19 and Luna Midway, which offers carnival-style games for a fee that ranges per game on Deck 18. I shot and missed at one station with a basketball hoop, but I had fun trying. Elsewhere on Deck 19, Horizon Park is located just above the Kids Aqua Park with loungers, a semi-covered patio with tables, cornhole, and panoramic views. And then we have HIKO, H-I-K-O, Innovation Meets Wonder. HIKO, another show making its debut on Luna, goes heavy on the tech and acrobatics. The production follows an original character, accompanied by an original score and a stellar band, with sci-fi inspired costumes, aerial dances, and trampolines. Digital components like 3D mapping add new dimensions to their performances. The ship also has plenty of familiar features, including some that debuted on Aqua. From the Aqua Slide Coaster, a hull features the 12 zodiac constellations. And on the bow, the focal point, you'll find the moon, which along with the stars has guided travelers for millennia, said Elle, the hull artist and Luna's godmother, during a March 27th christening ceremony in Miami. A star-spangled mural in shades of blue and purple adorned the wall of my cabin, and a tall silver moon sculpture stands outside on Deck 8. How big is Norwegian Luna? Luna can accommodate 3,565 guests at double occupancy and measures 1,056 feet long with a gross tonnage of 154,100. Like Aqua, the vessel is 10% larger than predecessors Norwegian Prima and Norwegian Viva. Mark Kansley, the line's chief experience officer, said the company also made tweaks to Luna based on lessons learned from Aqua, which he called, in essence, a new platform. And with the new platform, there's some learnings. There's some feedback that we ourselves get as we operate the ship, and others we hear from our guests, he said. You know, this is great, but perhaps this would enhance it. For example, Norwegian sacrificed a handful of al fresco tables at Surfside Cafe and Grill to add a staircase between decks 17 and 18, offering a convenient new way to get from the pool area to other activities. And where does Norwegian Luna sail? Luna will sail Eastern and Western Caribbean itineraries from Miami through April 2027 before moving to New York. The ship's scheduled ports include Norwegian's Bahamas private island, Great Stirrup Cay, which is undergoing a major transformation. For example, the adults-only Vibe Ashore Club, an added-cost retreat starting at $100 for a day pass with cushy loungers, shade, and private beach access, and the Great Life Lagoon that boasts 2 swim-up bars open in December. The Great Tides Water Park, offering 19 water slides, cliff jumping, and more, is slated to open this summer. So if you want the boisterous, the high activity, interactive experience on the island, you should be able to have it, Kansley said. But if you wanted the more placid, the more sedate experience, you should also be able to have it. The company is also installing a 2-ship pier at the island. A recently added temporary pier will close in April for construction, which is expected to be completed by summer. Norwegian guests previously had to ride tender boats to shore, making stops more susceptible to weather-related cancellations. Available cruises aboard Luna currently start at $412 per person based on double occupancy, including taxes, fees, and port expenses, according to Norwegian's website. Fares include accommodations, many meals on board, live entertainment, and more. There you go. The boats, the ships keep getting bigger and bigger. You are listening to reading of articles and features from USA Today for Friday, April 3rd on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We will return for more readings after this short break. Your reader for this hour has been me, Chet Walzing. I was happy to be here. I was glad you were able to join me. And I hope you have a great weekend. Happy Easter to all of our Christian listeners. And happy Passover to our Jewish friends. Take care. We'll see you next time.
we'll continue with articles from today's issue of the USA Today, which is Friday, April 3rd. It is Section B, which is the Life section. Here's a story from Streaming. Ham teases new drama, more secrets on Neighbors, from Aaron Jensen. Lock your doors and secure your valuables. Apple TV's crime caper, Your Friends and Neighbors, returns to steal a bit of your free time weekly with its sophomore installment, April 3rd. Life is better than it's been for a while, star and executive producer Jon Hamm's Andrew Cooper says in the season premiere. After all, in May's season 1 finale, he was cleared in the death of Paul Levitt, played by Jordan Gelber, which was revealed to be a suicide. Coop's former flame, Samantha Levitt, played by Olivia Munn, also Paul's ex, tried to make the death look like a murder in the hopes of collecting on Paul's life insurance policy. Coop has also, thus far, been able to pull off his heist to supplement his family's lavish lifestyle after being fired from his finance job. You're finally feeling comfortable again, in control, safe, optimistic even, Coop continues in the premiere. And as you already know from painful experience, that's generally when life will serve up a perfectly aimed kick in the crotch. Enter Owen Ash, played by James Marsden, a flashy new resident of the fictional and flushed Westmont Village. He kind of comes in and makes a big splash and may be off-putting to some in town, Marsden says of his mysteriously wealthy character. Like, who's this guy? Who does he think he is? And with Ham's character, it's like, is he friend or foil? Marsden, age 52, continues. It's like, who's the king of the mountain here? Coop also is getting older, Ham acknowledges. The Emmy-winning actor himself turned 55 in March. Part of that is maintaining a lifestyle that's very physical, and becomes very difficult. The children Coop shares with ex-wife Mel, played by Amanda Peet, are growing, Ham says, in addition to other happenings complicating matters. So he has to understand that it's out of his control, and he has to kind of relinquish that and see where it takes him. Ham continues to shed light on what viewers can expect from the new season, in addition to addressing that viral dancing meme and the possibility of a Bad Bunny cameo. This interview has been edited and condensed for clarity and length. Question: in last season's finale, Coop and Mel shared a kiss and a moment while dancing. What can you tease about their relationship? Jon Hamm: Mel and Coop's relationship is tricky. Obviously, any couple that has children together will always be a part of each other's lives. And I think that it says something that the audience is rooting for them. It says something about what spark is still there, which is not insignificant. But I think there's a lot of work to do to repair that relationship on both sides, especially given Coop's decision to not give up his night job and not to go back to his daily Wall Street grind. So there's a lot of secrets there that I think are not necessarily beneficial to rekindling a relationship. This season, Coop continues to sharpen his focus on what really matters. In your life, have you had a similar shift? When people age, they definitely shift that focus. As you grow, you realize that so much of life is ephemeral. And I wonder, what are the things that last? For some people, it's legacy. For certain people, it's sticking your name on buildings that it doesn't necessarily belong on. Some people have different definitions of what is important for them. And I think part of the reason the show is resonating with people is that they see it in themselves. That university of what is meaningful. Is it important to people from an audience standpoint? I know this isn't what you meant, but I'm going to try to make a segue out of it. Universality. People saw themselves in the club scene with you dancing and made it a meme. I know it's not the first time you've been asked this, but I'm curious what you thought of that. That's a nice segue. Listen, I'm happy that it was that rather than a clip of me falling on my ass or getting tangled up in my dog and being dragged down the street or something. For better or worse, we live in an age of virality and an age of social media. I don't participate in it at all, but other people do. And I'm glad it brought people some sense of joy and a giggle in the middle of the day. I'm certainly glad that it brought more people to the show. So that was great. Former TV anchor Brian Williams was the first person to send me that. So that was kind of weird. I was like, what are you doing paying attention to this stuff? But he's definitely gotten his finger on the pulse of the culture. So good for him. Fans of yours, fans of an artist named Bad Bunny might be interested in a cameo on Your Friends and Neighbors. Would that ever be a possibility? I don't think so, but never say never, obviously. He's a wonderful guy. I've already worked with him on Saturday Night Live. Ham revived his viral dance moves captured at a Bad Bunny concert as a member of the audience when the singer hosted October 4th, 2025. That was very exciting to get to do. We do share a birthday, which is also cool. So I don't know. I'm looking forward to going and seeing more of his shows. I know he's going to be in Europe this summer. Hopefully I'll get a chance to be over there and catch some of his live shows because they're infectious and they're super fun. And I wish everybody could get a chance to see him live. Here's a music review. Springsteen offers hope at opener in Minneapolis. From Melissa Ruggieri. He was there in the 1980s to defend war veterans with Born in the USA. He was there in the 1990s to spotlight the hardships of poverty with The Ghost of Tim Joad. He was there in the 2000s to soothe our souls after the unthinkable tragedy of September 11th with The Rising. And now Bruce Springsteen is there again, the staunchest voice in music condemning the actions of the Trump administration, writing a song, Streets of Minneapolis, to honor the lives of Renee Good and Alex Ptai, who were killed by federal officers playing No Kings rallies on the city and starting a tour there as a bold statement. They picked the wrong town, Springsteen said from the stage of the Target Center. The power and solidarity of Minneapolis, of Minnesota, is an inspiration to the entire country. Anyone who didn't know the purpose of the quickly arranged Land of Hope and Dreams American tour was educated moments after the house lights dropped on the March 31st kickoff. Springsteen, age 76, asked for prayers for the men and women overseas and their safe return. He urged the sold-outs in the rafters crowd to choose hope over fear and use the righteous power of art and music. And then he struck a darker tone, telling the crowd, "We live in dangerous times," before condemning the corrupt, incompetent, racist, treasonous administration of President Donald Trump. With that, the E Street Band slammed into Edwin Starr's 1970 protest anthem, War, a bank of red lights augmenting the potency of the lyrics and Max Weinberg's snare dropping the exclamation points in the song. Pairing the cover, one of a handful of surprises during the concert, with Born in the USA, landed the intended musical uppercut, with Springsteen's voice a muscle sheathed in gruffness. Springsteen sends a serious message. The purposeful show, which clocked in at a tick under 3 hours and featured the 17-piece E Street Band and guitarist Tom Morello alongside Springsteen, is a dichotomous design. Even Springsteen's clothes, black work shirt and lived-in jeans, paired with a natty vest and tie, exhibited a contrast. Somberness, as well as anger and sadness, color the majority of the songs plucked from Springsteen's vast catalog to underscore the reason for this 20-date tour. Streets of Minneapolis arrived for the first time with the E Street Band, a rich arrangement anchored by Roy Bittan's piano and Susie Tyrrell's fiddle. The mention of good and tie in the lyrics triggered a roar from the crowd, already dotting the arena with phone lights. It wouldn't be the only tribute to the host city on this night. Other songs spotlighted over the years but not regularly performed until recently included Youngstown, featuring a screaming guitar solo from Nils Lofgren and Springsteen, his face shrouded in crimson lighting, sing-songing the Silom lyrics. Likewise, American Skin, 41 Shots, the track Springsteen wrote about the 1999 shooting death of student Amadou Diallo by the NYPD, that still resonate today. Morello uncorked an exorcism of a solo as Springsteen and the band intoned the gripping chorus, 41 shots, you can get killed, just for living in your American skin. My City of Ruins was prefaced by a Springsteen homily cataloging many of the Trump administration's actions, such as dismantling U.S. aid, threatening to leave NATO, angering European allies, whitewashing American history and museums. You want to talk about snowflakes? We have a president who can't handle the truth, Springsteen shouted before the song, an oral sea of hornbleats and gospelized vocals. Springsteen plays tribute to Maestro Prince, but the weighty undertones of the show were well balanced with comparatively lighthearted selections that provided an escape from the intensity. During Out in the Street, Springsteen strolled the back of the stage to acknowledge the fans with a rear view, smiling and waving, while his trip around the stage during an easy swinging Hungry Heart led him to lean into Weinberg and hold out his mic so the drummer could sing along with the chorus. A Lights Up encore stretch allowed fans to unleash their own constrained frustrations with Dancing in the Dark, that peppy anthem of middle-aged malaise that motivated Steven Van Zandt, clad in hues of purple and black, to bust a few moves. The always exhilarating Born to Run and fan favorite 10th Avenue Freeze-Out, highlighted by a searing Jake Clemens sax solo as images of deceased Uncle Clarence played on the video screens and a typically legendary introduction of band members, turned the arena into an expanse of airborne fists. But the wave of palpable surprise that rippled through the crowd as the stage lighting went purple made the occasion of the E Street Band covering a Prince song even more gratifying. For the maestro, Springsteen said, looking upward as he initiated Purple Rain, with a lyrical delivery more rugged and flat than Prince's soulful croon. But the song, which Springsteen also performed in 2016, shimmered on stage with the Lofgren and Morello trading guitar solos, and Springsteen finding his upper register to provoke a lump in throat moment. Springsteen ended the night with a hopeful message as he sat on the stage before a rousing version of Bob Dylan's Chimes of Freedom, and said, "These are hard times, but we'll make it through." He quoted the late civil rights activist John Lewis, telling the crowd to go out and get in some good trouble, and shared a sincere sentiment that he and the band wanted to bring some hope and strength to you. After a final bow with the E Streeters, Springsteen gave Clemens a tight hug and a warm smile before trotting down the stage steps, hand waving behind him and into the light. You've been listening to a reading of today's issue of the USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 28 minutes after the hour. So now we've got the sports section, which is section C. The Final Four insight and the best men's team left in 2026 is from Craig Meyer. After 2 thrilling weeks of high-stakes games, a group of 68 teams that entered mid-March with dreams of a men's national championship has been whittled to 4. And with that, college men's basketball preeminent event is about to get underway. The Final Four of the 2026 NCAA tournament will tip off on April 4th with Arizona, Michigan, UConn, and Illinois heading to Indianapolis, hoping to cut down the nets inside Lucas Oil Stadium. After securing a national title. Making the Final Four is an accomplishment in and of itself in college basketball, a step in a journey that doubles as a destination after teams successfully navigate all of the challenges that the first 4 full rounds of March Madness have to offer. This season, the Final Four is giving fans across the country a pair of teams, Michigan and Arizona, that were 2 of the 3 best teams for much of the regular season, and 2 others, Illinois and UConn, that spent most of the regular season ranked in the top 15. There's some history at stake, too. Will Arizona win and break a nearly 30-year titleless spell for schools west of Texas? Can Michigan or Illinois become the Big Ten's first men's national champion since 2000? Or is UConn poised for its 3rd straight title in the last 4 years, cementing its status as a modern-day dynasty? Those questions will be answered soon enough. But for now, how do those 4 squads stack up against another? Final Four power rankings. Number 1, Arizona, 36-2. Though there's not a whole lot that separates them from fellow juggernaut Michigan, the Wildcats have everything you could realistically hope for out of a title team. They have the consummate floor general and guard Jaden Bradley. They have a pair of 5-star freshmen in Braden Burries and Koa Pete, who have more than lived up to their immense hype before likely heading off to the NBA in a few weeks. They've got size and toughness down low with Ivan Karchinov, Mochis Krivas, and Tobe Oaka. While he still hasn't won a title, their coach, Tommy Lloyd, has exercised some past Michigan demons by leading the program to its first Final Four since 2001. What might be most encouraging for Arizona is that it's much less prone than anyone else in the country to an off shooting night. The Wildcats have the 3rd lowest three-point rate among all Division I teams, preferring instead to get high percentage shots closer to the basket. Even when they do fire from beyond the arc, they're still pretty good, shooting 36% as a team. While it's presumptuous to declare Arizona's game against Michigan as the pseudo-national championship, whoever wins the matchup will be a decided favorite in the title game. Number 2, Michigan, 35-3. The Wolverines were a pleasant surprise in Coach Dusty May's first season, more than tripling their win total from the previous season and advancing to the Sweet 16. In his second season at the helm, they're not an upstart, they're a freight train. After a 31-3 regular season, they've won their 4 NCAA tournament games by a combined 90 points, including a 33-point beatdown of Tennessee in the Elite Eight. For all the size Arizona has, Michigan counters with perhaps the best front court in the country, a physical and highly skilled trio, featuring Yaxel Lenborg, Ade Mara, and Morez Johnson Jr. May's team is number 1 nationally in adjusted defensive efficiency and is just one of 2 squads ranked in the top 5 in Division I in both offensive and defensive efficiency. According to KenPom, Arizona, fittingly, is the other. The Wolverines' guards are a bit more of a question mark, but North Carolina transfer Elliot Cadeau has been on a heater in the tournament with 33 assists to just 7 turnovers. Number 3, UConn, 33-5. While the Huskies are only 24 months removed from the second of their back-to-back national championships, this is a largely remade team, with program stalwart Alex Karabin the only player left who received significant minutes from either of those squads. Though they don't have that championship pedigree, this is a squad that has shown its mettle, hanging on to beat Michigan State in the Sweet 16 before pulling off an epic comeback victory against Duke in the Elite Eight, a game they trailed by 17 in the second half. No player has been more integral to this run than Terrace Reed Jr., who has been perhaps the best player in the tournament. Reed enters the Final Four averaging 21.8 points and 13.5 rebounds and 2.3 block shots per game while shooting 60% from the field. UConn isn't nearly as offensively potent as it has been in recent years, but it was still able to beat Duke despite missing 18 of its 23 threes. Cliche as it may sound, this is a team, program, and coach that simply finds ways to win. Dan Hurley's squad has this working for it too. The Huskies have now won 18 consecutive games in the Sweet 16 or later in the tournament. Number 4, Illinois, 28-8. The Fighting Illini road to Indianapolis wasn't as arduous as the paths traveled by the other 3 national semifinalists, but Coach Brad Underwood's team didn't look any less impressive. It won its 4 tournament games by an average of 19.5 points, and each game was decided by at least 10 points, including a win against number 2 seed Houston in a game played in the Cougars' hometown. Illinois is number 1 nationally in adjusted offensive efficiency, according to KenPom. More than 3 points per 100 possessions better than any other teams remaining in the field. Even when shots aren't falling at a dizzying pace, it has shown an ability to gut out games behind an improving defense that has held each of its last 3 opponents under 60 points. UConn will be a sizable challenge, but don't let the Huskies' 74-61 victory against the Illini back in November at Madison Square Garden sway you too much, especially since the team's current top scorers, Reed for UConn and Keaton Wagler for Illinois, combined to play just 29 minutes. The Final Four insight for women. Women's rivals reunite for repeat. Who's best? For Mitchell Northam. The Final Four was held in Charlotte, North Carolina in 1996 and featured Tennessee, Georgia, UConn, and Stanford, the same 4 teams that played in the national semifinals in the previous year. It was the only time in the history of the women's NCAA tournament that the same 4 teams played in back-to-back Final Fours. Until now, the UConn Huskies, UCLA Bruins, Texas Longhorns, and South Carolina Gamecocks are the 4 teams still standing out of the season's now 68-team March Madness field. A year ago, these teams, coached by Gina Arama, Corey Close, Vic Schaefer, and Dawn Staley, clashed in Tampa, Florida, with UConn winning its 12th national title behind Paige Buckers and Azzi Fudd. Now, all 4 teams will take the floor in Phoenix on April 3rd. UConn will face South Carolina, and UCLA takes on Texas in the semifinals. The undefeated Huskies got this far by outlasting Hannah Hidalgo and Notre Dame in the Fort Worth one regional final, and UCLA erased a double-digit deficit to defeat Duke in the Sacramento 2 Elite Eight. Texas absolutely stomped Michigan in a lopsided victory, and South Carolina beat TCU to punch its 6th straight ticket to the national semifinals. A closer look at each of the teams. Yukon 38-0. Trips to the Final Four 25. National championships 12. Reason the Huskies will win. The Huskies have been the most dominant team in the country all season, capturing all but one of their 38 wins by double digits. UConn's deficiencies in three-point defense and rebounding haven't been an issue yet. The Huskies haven't been in serious danger of losing since trailing Villanova at halftime in February. Again, Gina Arema's team went on to win by 14 points. No opponent has figured out a recipe for stopping the duo of Sarah Strong and Azzi Fudd. If they play well in Phoenix, UConn will capture its 13th championship. X Factor. Sarah Strong is likely going to sweep the National Player of the Year awards, but Azzi Fudd has developed a knack for playing well in big games. In November, Fudd scored 31 points to power UConn to its narrowest margin of victory this season, a 3-point win over Michigan. For the first time in a while, the Huskies are about to face that caliber of team again. They'll need Fudd, last year's most outstanding player at the Final Four, to hit big shots. UCLA 35-1. Trips to the Final Four 2. National championships 0 in NCAA era, 1 AW title in 1978. Reason the Bruins will win. The Bruins trailed Duke by double digits in the first half of their Elite Eight game, then switched things up in the second half. They mixed in some zone defense, leaned on Lauren Betts' proficiency in the post, hammered Duke in the paint, and let veterans like Angela Degluck set the tone. While UCLA has been great at three-point shooting this season, the Bruins proved against the Blue Devils they can still win when their deep shots aren't falling. If Betts continues to be dominant, Corey Close's team will be tough to beat. X Factor. Betts is the All-American on this team and likely a top 5 pick in the upcoming WNBA amateur draft. But Gianna Kneepkens is the team's top three-point shooter, making 42.9% of her attempts from behind the arc. The transfer from Utah hit a big one in the second half against Duke that seemed to shift momentum. Kneepkens wasn't with the Bruins at last year's Final Four, but could be the difference maker in this season. Texas 35-3. Trips to the Final Four 5. National championships 1. Reason the Longhorns will win. When the Longhorns start games off on the right foot and can build a double-digit lead in the first quarter, like they did against South Carolina and the SEC title game against Kentucky in the Sweet 16, and against Michigan in the Elite Eight, they tend to win with ease. The Longhorns rank in the top 10 nationally in defensive rating, points allowed per play, and opponent assist turnover ratio. Their defense can smother opponents. X Factor. Few players in March have been better than Madison Booker. Since the start of the SEC tournament, she is averaging 21.4 points, 8.6 rebounds, 3.9 assists, and 1.9 steals per game while shooting 60% from the floor. If Booker is cooking, as she has been throughout the postseason, the Longhorns are tough to beat. South Carolina 35-3. Trips to the Final Four 8. National championships 3. Reason the Gamecocks will win. The Gamecocks are 10th nationally in rebounding, 5th in opponent effective field goal percentage, and 4th in her hoop stats ratings, which checks all the boxes for what a national championship team should look like. South Carolina takes care of the ball, defends well, and plays efficiently. And it's also been on this stage a whole lot recently, as this is the 6th consecutive Final Four appearance for Dawn Staley's team. The Gamecocks won't be afraid of the moment. X Factor. Raven Johnson has long been the emotional leader of the Gamecocks and their defensive stopper. But when needed, she's proved in March that she can be South Carolina's go-to scorer, too. The senior guard, who will play in her fourth consecutive Final Four, had a career-best 22 points and 8 assists in an SEC tournament win over LSU and dropped 18 points on 8 of 11 shooting in the Gamecocks' Sweet 16 win over Oklahoma. Johnson has the fourth best assist-to-turnover ratio in the country and is 25th nationally in win shares. She'll be motivated to finish her storied career at South Carolina on a high note. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of the USA Today on the Nog Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 45 minutes after the hour. Huskies History Makers from Jordan Mendoza. It's party time in Storrs, Connecticut. March Madness is alive and well for UConn as both the men's and women's programs have advanced to the Final Four, an achievement that definitely earns the university its nickname as the basketball capital of the world. It's a magnificent achievement UConn knows plenty about, but how often has it happened? The 2026 UConn teams make it the 15th time it's happened. The Huskies are responsible for most of them, as this will be the 6th time they will experience it. Dual one-on-one school season champions. UConn 2004, 11, and 14 seeks its 4th men's and women's titles in the same year. No one else has done it even once. Men's and women's teams in Final Four at the same time. Georgia 1983, Duke 1999, Texas 2003, UConn 2004, Michigan State 2005, LSU 2006, UConn 2009, UConn 2011, Louisville 2013, UConn 2014, Syracuse 2016, South Carolina 2017, North Carolina State 2024, UConn 2024, and UConn 2026. College men's basketball. Carabin has a chance to join list of 3-time national champions from Essen Kassem. Alex Carabin will have a chance at history come the 2026 men's NCAA Tournament Final Four. The UConn men's basketball redshirt senior guard is looking to join an exclusive list of players to win 3 national titles during their collegiate career. Carabin was on the Huskies' back-to-back championship teams in 2023 and 2024. Carabin, along with teammates Hassan Diarra and Samson Johnson, was denied an opportunity to earn a three-peat last season when Florida knocked them out in the second round. Diarra and Johnson have since moved on from UConn, but Carabin, age 23, has a chance to become the first to accomplish this feat in 53 NCAA seasons. Larry Farmer and Larry Holyfield were the last players to become 3-time NCAA tournament champions when the John Wooden-coached UCLA Bruins defeated Memphis State in the national championship game. Perhaps the biggest name to win 3 national championships during his collegiate career was Lou Alcindor, now Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He led the Bruins to 3 straight titles between 1967 and 1969. The title marked the end of a dynastic 7 straight national titles for the Bruins. PGA Tour. Masters-bound rookie still lives at home and takes out the trash. From Adam Shubik. Former Baylor men's golf coach Mike McGraw remembers seeing a fire burning bright in Johnny Kiefer the first time he watched him play more than a decade ago. McGraw attended the 2015 Texas Junior Golf Tour's Tournament of Champions that May at Brackenridge Park Golf Course in search of the next generation of Texas talent that would produce the likes of Jordan Spieth, Scotty Scheffler, and Will Zalatoria. Kiefer was just 14, but McGraw remembers thinking of him, "That's what my team needs. It's what I hope to recruit all the time," he recalled in a phone interview, "and I saw it in Johnny." So McGraw recruited him hard, and eventually Kiefer didn't simply commit. He made the 3-hour drive from his home in San Antonio to Baylor and Waco to tell McGraw he was going to play for him. I asked him, "Johnny, when did you know you wanted to come to Baylor?" And he said, "Remember that morning that you saw me at Brackenridge Park?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "That's when I decided I was going to Baylor," McGraw recounted. "Why did you make me work for 2.5 more years?" He smiled and said, "I wanted to make you earn it." On April 3rd, McGraw was planning to watch Kiefer, now a 25-year-old PGA Tour rookie, play in the second round of the Valero Texas Open at TPC San Antonio, the Oaks course, the course that Kiefer said he has played 1,000,000 times, but never quite like this. Under McGraw's watchful eye, Kiefer blossomed into a 3-time All-American, setting the Baylor record for career scoring average, 71.45. But he never earned first-team honors. His game didn't fully bloom until the spring semester of his senior year. Always a good driver of the ball who putted beautifully, Kiefer emphasized improving his wedge game, and his game took off. He earned PGA Tour America status upon graduation by finishing number 25 in the 2024 PGA Tour University ranking, and then proceeded to win the money list in the Fortinet Cup standings after 9 top 10 finishes and 1 win. He was even better at the Korn Ferry Tour, finishing number 1 on the developmental tour's points list following 2 victories and 7 additional top 10s in 23 starts. He was named Player of the Year and Rookie of the Year for the 2025 Korn Ferry Tour season, joining Scheffler 2019 and Sungjae Im 2018 as the only players to win both awards in a single season. Kiefer capped off his meteoric rise by climbing inside the top 50 in the world at the end of last season after a T7 at the PGA Tour's RSM Classic and earned a berth in the 2026 Masters. Recently, former Baylor Bear Jimmy Walker, a 6-time PGA Tour winner, joined him at Augusta National Golf Club and shared his local knowledge from experiences playing there. Not even McGraw figured Kiefer would take pro golf by storm the way he has. "I didn't expect what we've seen, but I did expect him to make it to pro golf," McGraw said. "I didn't think it would be this quick, and he didn't either, if he's telling the truth." Kiefer's swift rise through the ranks is all the more remarkable given that he was a lacrosse player in his youth who had to be wooed to the golf course with the promise of lacrosse equipment by his dad. But that changed when the family moved to Texas, 15 minutes or less, depending on traffic, from TPC San Antonio. Kiefer attended the Valero Texas Open as a spectator, stoking his desire to play professionally while following the likes of Hideki Matsuyama, Spieth, Tony Finau, and Ricky Fowler. Not many years later, he's inside the ropes playing alongside them. He has enjoyed weekend pairings with Matsuyama, Adam Scott, and Webb Simpson, major champions, whose games he's long admired. Kiefer is coming off his best finish in 14 career PGA Tour starts with a T3 at last week's Texas Children's Houston Open. This week, Kiefer gets to sleep in his own bed as he makes his Valero Texas Open debut. the course he practiced at and played matches as a member of the Johnson High School team. He also may hold the distinction of being the only tour pro who still lives at home with his parents. It's a sensible move, given his fiancée is in medical school and still waiting to see where she'll do her residency, and Kiefer often is on the road chasing the tour. It's nice not having to worry about when I come home, going to get groceries, going to take out the trash, just doing my regular chores, he said. I really enjoy it, save up the money, and we'll see and go from there. Raiders sign add Cousins to the quarterback room, from Jacob Kamenker. Kirk Cousins is set to play for his fourth different NFL team after agreeing to a contract with the Las Vegas Raiders on April 2nd. The deal was announced on social media by Cousins' agent, Mike McCartney. Cousins is coming off an ill-fated 2-year stint with the Atlanta Falcons. He originally inked a 4-year, $180 million deal to serve as Atlanta's franchise quarterback, but he was benched at the end of his first season after throwing a league-high 16 interceptions across 14 starts. Cousins opened the 2025 season as the backup to 2024 first-round pick Michael Penix Jr. The veteran eventually drew in the lineup after Penix suffered a season-ending ACL tear and led the Falcons to a 5-3 record across his 8 starts. Overall, Cousins threw for 1,720 yards, 10 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. However, he completed just 61.7% of his passes and averaged just 6.4 yards per attempt, his lowest marks across both categories since the 2013 season. Cousins' performance wasn't enough to convince the Falcons to keep him for another season. Atlanta released him at the start of the new league year to give him the opportunity to seek a new NFL home. Ultimately, Cousins landed with the Raiders, where he will provide veteran depth as the team sets to draft Fernando Mendoza with the number 1 pick in the 2026 draft on April 23rd. Cousins could step in as a veteran starter for new coach Clint Kubiak's team, allowing Mendoza the opportunity to adjust and learn about the professional game. Should Las Vegas pick the Indiana passer with the number 1 overall pick, it'll mark the second time in as many stops that Cousins is set to join a depth chart that also includes a highly drafted rookie quarterback, after the Falcons selected Penix in the 2023 draft. Cousins is choosing the Raiders with at least the idea of working with Mendoza and Kubiak, who was Cousins' quarterback coach and later offensive coordinator, while with the Minnesota Vikings between 2019 and 2021. At the very least, Vegas provides the veteran quarterback with an opportunity to potentially start and showcase that there is still something left in the tank. Here's some Kirk Cousins stats. Cousins has appeared in 174 games and made 167 starts since being a 4th-round pick in the 2012 NFL Draft. A look at his career stats in the league. Record, 88, 77, and 2. Completion percentage, 66.7. Passing yards, 44,700. Passing touchdowns, 298. Interceptions, 131. Yards per attempt, 7.6. Passer rating, 96.8. Carries, 341. Rushing yards, 965. Rushing touchdowns, 20. Sky trade with fire, tempo in exchange for protection, from Andre Soto. The Chicago Sky announced a pair of trades with both of the WNBA's newest expansion team days ahead of the expansion draft, April 3rd. The Sky are sending a second-round pick, number 17 overall, in the 2026 regular WNBA draft to the Portland Fire in exchange for the number 21 pick, and the Fire not selecting any player from Chicago's unprotected list in the expansion draft. Similarly, the Sky are also sending another second-rounder, number 26 overall, which they originally acquired from the New York Liberty, to the Toronto Tempo, with the same agreement that they will not select a Sky player in the expansion draft. This means on April 3rd, neither expansion team will add a player currently on the Sky's roster. Chicago still has 3 picks, number 5, 21, and 32 overall, in the WNBA amateur draft, which will take place on April 13th. The Fire and Tempo will fill out their rosters for the first time in the expansion draft, alternating picks as they select from the designated pool of available players from all 13, or in this case, 12 other teams. Portland will pick first in the expansion draft after Toronto won a coin toss and instead opted to receive the 6th overall pick in the WNBA amateur draft, April 13th. The 2 teams will participate in a snake-style draft with up to 6 picks per team over 2 rounds. The Fire and Tempo can each select one impending unrestricted free agent, meaning the bulk of their selections will be players on rookie deals, restricted free agents, and exclusive rights free agents. The move makes sense for all parties, as the Sky essentially found a way to protect their entire roster and keep their team intact, while Portland and Toronto get to stockpile another draft pick in a deep 2026 draft class. Buckers likes Huskies dual title chances. From Sydney Henderson. Paige Buckers said both the UConn women's and men's teams being in the Final Four is proof that Storrs, Connecticut is the best basketball capital in the world. She may be a little biased. The former UConn superstar who led the Huskies to the program's 12th national women's title last season said she's rooting for both programs to pull off rare dual championships. The university has had its women's and men's team advance to the Final Four 15 times in March Madness history, including the 2026 Huskies, but winning both championships has only happened twice. UConn achieved the feat both times. We didn't get to have a dual year. We were close, Buckers said April 1st at the Team USA basketball camp in Phoenix. She's referring to the UConn women falling short of the title game in 2024 after a Final Four loss to Caitlin Clark and the Iowa Hawkeyes, while UConn's men's basketball went on to win the national title. The championship double was last pulled off by UConn in 2014, when Breanna Stewart and the women's team hoisted the NCAA title trophy within 24 hours of Shabazz Napier and the men's team. Stephanie Dolson was a member of that women's championship team and recalled the excitement of both teams winning it all. It was a really special moment for us when we won, and then the men had won the next day, she recalled at the Team USA basketball camp. I know how the girls feel right now, just that they're all in the Final Four, so I'm really excited, looking forward to watching both teams play. Dolson is confident that the women's team has what it takes to defend the championship. They look great. I'm excited to watch them play. I think they're going to take the championship, she declared. Obviously, I'm rooting for them. They have a special team. You can tell how close they are and how well they vibe. The Yukon women have dominated competition across an undefeated season and are riding a 54-game winning streak, dating back to Bucker's time in Storrs, Connecticut. But she said she's impressed by how this squad has responded to the adversity throughout the tournament after battling through some tight first halves. The resilience and the togetherness stood out for sure, she said. And for me, it's always like I'm scared for other teams coming out in third quarter because I know what coach is saying at halftime. You've been listening to a reading of the USA Today for April 3rd. We read the USA Today's weekdays at noon. For more information, call us at 716-821-5555. Your reader for this hour has been Nancy.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have episode number 15 of Buckeye by Patrick Ryan. Following that at 3 o'clock is the New York Magazine, and at 4 o'clock is a re-airing of today's Buffalo News. Stay with us for these readings and more. You're listening to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Radio Reading serves people who are blind or have a print disability throughout Western New York and Southern Ontario's Niagara Peninsula. From its broadcast studios at 1199 Harlem Road in Cheektowaga, just north of Clinton Street. Almost 40 years and more than 300,000 hours of radio readings to those unable to read printed matter on their own. Our broadcast signal is provided at no charge by WNED. Volunteer radio readers broadcast daily readings of newspapers, magazines, and books. For more information on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, call us at 716-821-5555. You're listening to your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Our volunteer radio readers broadcast daily readings 24 hours a day of newspapers, magazines, books, and other printed matter. People who are blind or have a print disability throughout Western New York and Southern Ontario's Niagara Peninsula are provided special reading radios. This year, the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service marks almost 40 years on the air. Our broadcast signal is provided at no charge by WNED. Radio Reading Service studios are at 1199 Harlem Road in Cheektowaga. The Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service website is nfradioreading.org. For more information, call us at 716-821-5555.
Welcome to Independent Perspective, a public affairs presentation of Western New York independent living. Our guest today is Kelly Lalka, the Education Program Manager of the Western New York chapter of the Alzheimer's Association, and I'm your host, Ernie Churchwell. Welcome to the program, Kylie.
Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. And I thought we should probably clear up some misunderstandings about Alzheimer's right at the beginning. I gather senility is a term which is really out of fashion, kind of like calling someone with an intellectual disability retarded or something. It just isn't done these days. But there is apparently a distinction between Alzheimer's and, oh heavens, what's the other term that we mentioned just a moment ago?
Dementia.
Dementia, okay. If you could explain the differential between those two, please.
Yes, I would love to. So I do hear those words, Alzheimer's and dementia, used interchangeably often, but the fact is that they are actually two different terms. So we like to refer to dementia as what we call an umbrella term. It's an overarching term. So the definition of dementia is actually a collection of symptoms that are severe enough to interfere with daily life. So that's the definition of dementia. So dementia is something's happening in the brain, but what's causing it? Alzheimer's is actually the greatest known cause of dementia. So out of all dementia cases, about 60 to 80% of those folks living with dementia have Alzheimer's specifically. And there's about over 80 different causes or types or forms of dementia under that vast umbrella. And so I typically like to tell people, puts it into perspective a little bit, all Alzheimer's is dementia, but not all dementia is Alzheimer's.
Did I remember hearing on the news a short time ago that there was a breakthrough that had occurred which might help people with dementia?
Yeah, so there are a few new drugs that have been approved by the FDA in the last few years. We are now referring to this time as the era of treatment. So before 2021, there was no treatment out there that would help to slow down the disease. There were medications developed and approved by the FDA that would help to control the symptoms of Alzheimer's disease. But a few years ago, we started developing drugs that can slow the progression of Alzheimer's disease. So it is not a cure, it does not reverse it by any means. However, it does give folks living with dementia or living with Alzheimer's disease more time. So it does have the ability to slow down the disease, but not stop it or cure it.
What does the Alzheimer's Association do to help people deal with this affliction?
Yeah, so the Alzheimer's Association, we are a national organization. So any community across the country has access to a local chapter. Our chapter is Western New York, so we cover all 8 counties of Western New York, which includes Allegheny, Cattaraugus, Chautauqua, Erie, Genesee, Niagara, Orleans, and Wyoming. And so all of our programs and services that we offer to the community is completely free. So we have education classes for caregivers and for people living with dementia. We have support groups. We have care consultations, which are one-on-one conversations with folks where we can help point them in the right direction or just be emotional support to them. We often have a lot of resources. We can point you in the right direction, and we're just there for that support. We often have some really great grants in which we're able to supply some services or some products, but we are there to be that support for those families living with Alzheimer's or any other form of dementia.
You know, we must have been having fun because the time has flown. We're just about out of it. I'm sure people will have questions. How can they reach you?
Absolutely. We have a 24/7 helpline number that is truly available at all times. That number is 800-272-3900, and our website is alz.org.
Thanks so much for being with us, Kayla.
Thank you so much for having me.
You've been listening to Independent Perspective, a public affairs presentation of Western New York Independent Living. Our guest today was Kaylee Lalka, Education Program Manager of the Western New York chapter of the Alzheimer's Association, and I've been your host, Ernie Churchwell.
The Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a serialized